Hey everybody, welcome to another Python tutorial. In this one, I'm going to show you how to use iterators. So let's go into the topic. So first, iterators is an object that can iterate countable numbers. So that is what an iterator is. So it can iterate the iterables. So what is the difference between iterator and an iterable? An iterator is which you can traverse or loop through the value. So like you can calculate each of the one and print one by one. And iterable are objects that can be iterated upon, which are basically you can iterate it and print those values. So they both have a lot of difference. We're going to be learning about that too. So example for iterables are lists, strings, sets, and even other. So example for iterator, it might be like using the for loops or using your own function to loop through something. So basically that is what the examples are. So there are many ways to iterate iterables. So let's see some of the ways you can. So the first way is to use the for loops. So let's say I have a class named A. It's gonna have a string, which is basically, let's take something called apple. And now I can loop through this string because here, as I said, an example of iterator is a string. So we can loop through this using for loops. For x in A, I can print x. So basically, it's gonna print us each of the letter. So it's gonna print us A, P, P, L, E. So that's how you can loop through a string. And now let's see how can you loop through a number. Now looping through a number is kind of hard. It depends on what your question is. So if your question is you want to print each number, like let's say this letter, like apple, what I have here, you just want to print A, P, P kind of thing. So you can just do this. So I have an object as a number, so a number 100, and now I have to convert this to a string because a number is not iterable. So let's say if I did not, so let me write this part. So I'm gonna copy this so that we don't even have to write it. And now I can just use the for loop to loop it. For x in A, print x. So if I run this, it's gonna print us integer cannot be iterable because integer is not an iterable. So instead, if I convert this to a string, now if I run this, it's gonna print us 100. As you see, so that's the first question of how your question depends. So let's say you have a different question saying you have to print from 0 to 99, which is basically the numbers before 100. So for that, you can use something called range. I said in my for loops video, so if you want to go check it, you can go check it out. And now I can just use A. And remember, I have to delete this part because that is the first question of how you perceive it. So if I run this, it's gonna print us the numbers before 100. So as you see, I have a lot of numbers right here. So let me make it big. As you see, there are a lot of numbers, so it's gonna print us from 0 to 99. It's not gonna print us from 100 because it's gonna print before numbers. So that's a way of how to use iterators. So let's see another example of how you can use iterators. You can create a class, which is basically my classes and objects video. And now I'm gonna name this iteration because it's gonna iterate. So I'm giving a name which is like pretty convenient to understand. And now I can just do anything in a one. I can just I want to iterate here, so I have to use iter already predefined by Python. So it's basically kind of like init, and then this is kind of like my own function, and have self in this. Self.a equals 1. So basically I want to start from 1 and print till some amount of numbers. And now some people may ask, like, where is A? So if you don't have any variable called A in here, so we don't have any parameters called A, neither in the class thing, or we don't even have an init. I'm not even gonna pass. So Python takes this as a public variable, which means it's already defined kind of thing, and then it's gonna use it. So first I have to print self.a because in future, now when I write this part, which is basically it's gonna print the next one, it's not gonna print us one, so we have to do it. So first I have a thing called next over here, and then have self, and then I can use it again. So this time I'm gonna use self.a plus equals 1, and now I can do whatever I want with this. And now, as usual, I have to print self.a, self.a. And now I have to create my object, which is basically I have an object variable, and then use iteration inside this. So I have the iteration, and as you see, it said none, which is basically no parameters required. And then I can just do it. Object dot, I have to call the iter function, which is basically this one, and then have nothing parameters, and then object dot next. And then if I run this, so if you just take a look, it's gonna print us just two numbers, which is 1 and 2. Let me decrease that size, I forgot to do that. And now if I run this, it's gonna print us 1 and 2, because we are not if you wanted to print like till 5 or something, you can just use these next at how many times you want. So let's say I want to print till 5, and that will be it. So now if I run this, it's gonna print us till 4. I have to write another one over there, and then if I do this, it's gonna print us till 5. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If I run this, it should print us from 1 to 5. As you see, 1 to 5. So this is not dynamic, like the computer is not doing by itself. So let's say I want to print from 1 to 100. That's gonna take a long time to do, because I can like copy this and do this, and you can of course do in the for loops way. And now so let's say your question is like you have to use the iteration without for loops or something kind of like that. You can do using for loops, but using while loops inside this are pretty great, because that would be easy a lot. And if you don't know what is a while loop is something you can iterate through until the statement is true. So first, I have to have my while loop statement. So let's take self.a is until self.a is less than, let's take 20, or let's take 5. And now I have to indent this, because indentation matters. And now I just have to click tab, and as you see, I'm done. If I run this, it's gonna print us 1 and 2, 5. So if I don't want this, then if I could delete, it's gonna print us 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that's how iteration works in Python. And there are a lot of ways to iterate, like you can iterate through for loops, while loop, and etc. So that's it for today's video. See you in the next video. Until then, bye bye.